duty of care.
David Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister told us he would deliver honest government, that he would be open, that he would end spin and restore trust, and that he would deliver competence. After the events of the last few days, can he honestly stand there and say that all over again?
And that is why I've acted immediately to set up 2 inquiries. Mr. Speaker, all of us in all sides of this House have an interest in integrity in the funding of political parties. And we should do everything in our power to ensure that political party finances are transparent and everything is above board. And that is why what happened was completely unjustifiable. It has got to be investigated as a matter of urgency. 2 internal inquiries have been set up within the Labour Party, and the Electoral Commission will investigate. I am determined to make sure that political party finances are above board.
The Prime Minister says he must do everything in his power, and he said yesterday that unlawful acts have taken place. So has he asked the police to come in and investigate?
Sir, that is a matter, Mr. Speaker, as the Right Honourable Gentleman should know, for the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission has announced an inquiry into this matter. We reported the matter to the Electoral Commission. We have told them that we are setting up 2 separate inquiries. The Electoral Commission will run an inquiry, and it is their decision as to whether the police are brought in. We are happy to cooperate in any way, because, in my view, this is something that has got to be cleaned up in the interest of the whole of public life, and I am determined to take that action.
The Prime Minister is wrong. This is not the exclusive competence of the Electoral Commission, and I'm asking him a simple question. If he thinks something unlawful has taken place, doesn't he have a duty to call in the police himself?
Mr. Speaker, under every convention, we report the matter to the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission was set up under a law that we passed with support from the other parties in this House. The Electoral Commission will make its decision as to whether this is a matter for the police, and we will cooperate in any way possible with either the Electoral Commission or the police, or both. I say to the Right Honourable Gentleman, it is in everybody's interest that action is taken against something that is unjustifiable. The procedures that were followed were not acceptable. Any changes in the law that are necessary will be made, and I believe that all parties have an interest in sorting this out.
The public will see the Prime Minister just wriggling. That is the facts of it. Now,
Order. The Right Honourable Gentleman will be heard. Yes. The Honourable Gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Skinner, be quiet. You know better. And order. The Honourable Gentleman's out of order and he knows it. Order. I can hear. The Honourable Gentleman. The Right Honourable Gentleman.
Mr. Speaker, we learnt this morning that John Mendelsohn, someone who the Prime Minister himself appointed, knew for a month about a situation that the Prime Minister himself has called unlawful and unacceptable. How can that person possibly still be in post?
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Mendelsohn has issued a statement clarifying what happened. On September the 3rd, he started employment in the Labour Party. He has had absolutely no involvement in the donations that have been made. These donations have been happening for a period of 4 years before Mr. Mendelsohn took office. That is why the investigation that should take place is the one that I've set up internally in the Labour Party, the inquiry that will be led by Lord Harries and led by Lord McCluskey, a senior High Court judge and the retired Bishop of Oxford, and we will do everything in our power. Well, we will do everything in our power, as the terms of reference have said, everything in our power to show that the standards that will be followed in the future will be standards that will be acceptable in every area of public life.
So is the Prime Minister telling us that Mr. Mendelsohn knew and did not tell either the Prime Minister or the police? Is that an acceptable situation?
Mr. Mendelsohn says, if I can put the Right Honourable Gentleman right, Mr. Mendelsohn says in his statement that has just been issued that he was led to understand by the General Secretary of the party that this had been cleared with the Electoral Commission. And that is the issue that was before him. He also says that he was unhappy in principle with these arrangements, and that he had approached one of the people involved and was seeking a meeting to sort these things out. I have to say to them, Mr. Mendelsohn started on September the 3rd. He was involved in none of the donations that were made. He is not the registration officer reporting to the Electoral Commission. But of course, if anything untoward has happened in this respect, that will be a matter for the inquiry, and we will take whatever action is necessary to sort this out.
I have to say, the Prime Minister's whole explanation beggars belief. This goes to questions of the Prime Minister's own integrity. Does he really expect us to believe that someone who even his own side believe is a control freak was preparing for an election, sorting out the finances, sitting round the table with everyone who was caught up in this scandal, and yet didn't have the first idea of what was going on? We have had 155 days of this government. We've had disaster after disaster, a run on a bank, half the country's details lost in the post, and now this. His excuses, they go from incompetence to complacency, and there are questions about his integrity. Aren't people rightly asking now, is this man simply not cut out for the job?
Mr. Speaker, it was our party, the Labour Party, that brought in the legislation in 2000.
Order. It goes for the Prime Minister as well. He must get a hearing. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it was our party, the Labour Party, that brought
Order. Prime Minister.
our party that brought in legislation in 2000 to restrict foreign donors, to register donors, to have a comprehensive framework for election, to have an electoral commission, and we are ready to take any further measures, and I hope there will be all-party support, so that everything in party politics is above board, including the use of third-party sources for donations. And as for competence, I remind them that in 1992, he sat there when interest rates went to 15%. Competence is the lowest interest rates for a generation, the lowest inflation for a generation, the highest employment for a generation, a doubling of investment in the health service, a minimum wage, properly financing education, and we will continue to do our best by the country.